Now I love the Metroid Prime Trilogy, having 3 great games all packed into one CD, with a bunch of bonus features and content. It's such an amazing package, and I would love if this game were to be ported over to the Switch, as many fans would. With the Wii console aging and with no one owning a Wii U, if Nintendo were to just port over the trilogy onto the Switch, I would be really happy. Although I started wondering, wouldn't it be cool if they changed a couple things for the Prime Trilogy? Maybe removed some features, added some content, maybe shipped up a couple of mechanics? It could actually be a much more enhanced experience. And that's what today's discussion video is going to be about. Just me talking about my wish list over the things I would love to see changed for the Prime Trilogy. Now keep in mind, this is a wish list. The things I'm going to mention may range from like reasonable changes that make complete sense to more outlandish and crazy requests that ultimately would never happen because it's just unreasonable. But that's the beauty of a wish list. I can just say what I want and a man can dream, am I right? And as always, if you have your own opinions over things you would like to see changed, added, or removed from the Prime Trilogy, feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And let's get started! Now to be completely honest, I'm genuinely shocked that the Metroid Prime Trilogy can run so well on the Wii. 3 big games on a double-layered disc. I'm surprised there's no frame rate issues, blurry visuals, or even screen tearing. It's a really solid game performance-wise. Well, except for one little aspect that I hope they fix. This is most noticeable in Metroid Prime 3, but sometimes it takes a while for rooms to load in. Now ultimately, this isn't really too much of an issue. At the very most, I've waited like, around 7 seconds for a room to load in. Not too bad, but there are many moments in gameplay where I've actually tried getting out of a room as soon as possible because it's full of enemies I don't want to deal with. But with the door taking a while to load in, I'm just standing there waiting for a door to open while I'm getting shot at, which gets really annoying. And I'm pretty sure speedrunners hate the fact that rooms take a while to load in. So with the hopes of the trilogy being ported onto a much more powerful console like the Switch, and with the game being on a cartridge instead of a double-layered disc, hopefully the loading times can actually be alleviated to make the Metroid games a much more smoother experience. Now I never really got a chance to experience Metroid Prime 2's multiplayer. None of my friends really cared too much about this game mode to even give it a shot, and with no option for AI enemies, it was just a game mode I never really got a chance to play with. So for the Switch port, I thought it would be pretty cool if they added in online functionality. A chance to play this multiplayer game with online friends or even lobby up with random people. A lot of people will finally get an opportunity to play out this game mode, and I would be really happy for that. Sure, it probably won't be as huge or as active like Smash Bros, Splatoon, or even ARMS, but having the option would be pretty cool. And if they can't add in online for whatever reason, then maybe add in an option for AI controlled enemies so that at least people who don't have friends can at least try out the game mode. I mean, if Metroid Prime Hunters on the DS can add in AI controlled enemies, then I don't see why the Switch version won't be able to with the trilogy. Now I might be a little bit biased, but I really do love the fact that the fusion suit is playable in Metroid Prime 1. Not only is it a cool way to see my favorite suit in a 3D model, but it also gave me another incentive to replay the game, seeing all the cutscenes but in a completely different suit. And I think it would be pretty cool if they did that for the other 2 games, but not just only the fusion suit. Since all 3 games essentially are pretty similar, I thought it would be pretty cool if we can mix and match up suits throughout the games. In Metroid Prime 3, you get to use the fusion suit and have the suit change as you get more corrupted. Use the standard power suit, Vario suit, and gravity suit as you explore light and dark aether, and become immune to dark aether's atmosphere once you get the Phazon suit. And being able to save Talon 4 with the help of the Luminoth by having the light and dark suit as upgrades for Prime 1. Obviously this would be purely cosmetic, but being given the option to replay these games with different suits and being able to see these cutscenes in different suits would be just another incentive to replay the game, honestly. Now in Metroid Prime Trilogy's bonus menu, you get to actually unlock a couple of cool soundtracks throughout the games. And since the Switch is a portable console, it would be pretty cool if we were given an MP3 option for the soundtrack. Being able to listen to the songs on sleep mode is a pretty cool idea. Maybe give us an option to have a playlist of our favorite tracks. It would be pretty cool. I'm a huge sucker for games that have MP3 options for their music gallery or jukebox, so this would be a feature I would love a lot. And while we're in the subject of music, maybe add in the entire OST as an option to unlock instead of just certain tracks. Cause come on, if I can't unlock Rundus' theme, then there's no point in this music functionality. I'm sorry, that's I just think it's a crime that you don't have Rundus' theme unlockable in the original trilogy. Now I've spent countless hours of gameplay not playing the actual game, but going through the game's data log entries, Pokedex entries, bestiaries, trophy galleries, record logs, just looking at sprites, looking at models, reading up on little bits of lore that just build the world. I love this a lot, and I think it'll be pretty cool if we had an archive system for all 3 game data log entries in one menu. Cause personally, this might be a me thing, but it gets annoying having a boot up Prime Trilogy, load up Prime 1, load up my save file, then read up on all the entries, only to then restart the game, load up Prime 2, load up my save file, read all the entries, only to then reboot the game again, load up Prime 3, load up my save file, then read up on all those entries there. Having all the entries in one main menu would be so much more convenient, and honestly, it would make it so much easier being able to compare sprites and models between 3 different games in one menu. And on the subject on data log entries, I think it would be pretty cool on top of that to add in all the unused data log entries that we see throughout the Prime games. Prime 1 and Prime 2 had a couple of unused entries that were pretty cool, but Prime 3 has so many unused entries that it's just crazy. Prime 3 had a lot of unused data log entries that have so much lore but can't be used because since they're not in the game officially, they're not considered canon. And it sucks. There's unused entries about Brio, Elijah, Eutragus, FaZe, Dark Samus, GFS Valhalla. Did you know that the Space Pirates actually recreated Dark Aether's environment to try to recreate the Dark Talon Metroids? That's such a cool piece of information, but sadly, it's not canon. It's such a shame because I've read through a lot of these entries and they just add so much cool like lore and references and continuity between the Prime Trilogy. And since they're not in the game officially, they can't be considered canon. This is why I want data log entries finally added into the game. I'm pretty sure trying to find like available terminals or putting them in the actual game might be a little difficult, so having them in the data log archive would be a pretty cool alternative. Now to be completely honest with you, I love the motion controls of the Prime Trilogy. I know not a lot of people really like motion controls, but I think it's so immersive having one-on-one controls over where you aim and shoot. But I do understand that not a lot of people really like motion controls. It gets really annoying and tiresome to have your arms stretched out for long play sessions, as well as many people kind of preferring the classic GameCube control scheme that Prime 1 and Prime 2 originally had, as opposed to having the Wiimote and nunchuck. So I think it would be pretty cool if they added multiple different control schemes for different controllers. Because let's be honest, Prime 1 and Prime 2 worked pretty good with GameCube controls, and it was so weird how that wasn't an option in the trilogy. Having the option to be able to play with either a Pro Controller, Joy-Cons, motion controls, GameCube controls, or handheld mode would make the game much more accessible for many players of different playstyles. Although Prime 3 is going to be a little bit tricky, to be honest, with the motion controls being a little bit more integral with the gameplay, but we'll just use this as a transition to my next point. Now, Metroid Prime 3 came out in a special era of gaming where motion controls were a little bit too gimmicky. Sure, I love one-on-one aiming, and whipping the nunchuck for the grapple whip was actually pretty cool. I love that option a lot. But I really hate the fact that I gotta manually press buttons, flip switches, turn diodes, and pull canisters just to do basic actions. Sure, they're not difficult things to do, they like take a couple seconds of your time, but if I had an option to remove these gimmicky moments, I would do it in a heartbeat. Instead of having to manually do all the things by hand, maybe just have an option where you go up to the button, press the command button, and an animation will automatically do it for you, removing a lot of the gimmicky feel that Metroid Prime 3 had, and I would love this a lot. Now I think it'd be pretty cool if we had an option to play the Metroid Prime games, but with a nice twist added to them. Originally, I thought it'd be pretty cool to have a randomizer mode, since randomizers are pretty fun in Metroidvania games, but in retrospect, a lot of more newer and novice players would be really irritated and probably frustrated with this game mode because you kinda need to know how to sequence break to even have a chance at beating a randomizer run. But then I thought of the next best thing, New Game Mode Plus, a game mode where you start off the game with literally all your upgrades except for health and ammo, and your main goal of the game isn't to explore for upgrades, but to find the best route throughout the game to get all the keys to access the final boss. For the veteran and experienced players, this would be a cool speedrunning opportunity, a chance to fully explore and optimize your routes to see how fast you can get to the final boss. And for more newer and inexperienced players, this would be a cool way to dip your toes in speedrunning and sequence breaking. With all your upgrades at your disposal, you can now take routes that you normally couldn't in normal gameplay, giving the player a whole new perspective on how to play a Metroid game. The idea of starting Metroid Prime 2 with the light suit on already would be so cool. I don't have to wait until the end game of Prime 2 to actually explore Dark Aether. Now I love how the trilogy rewards the player with tokens by just playing the game. Beat the boss, scan some enemies, play the game, and you get a nice amount of tokens. The only issue though is the green tokens. In Metroid Prime 3 you gain these friend vouchers that are ultimately worthless, but if you exchange them with a friend online, you can gain green tokens which you can use to buy things in the shop. The issue though is that with Nintendo dropping its online service for the Wii, players can no longer legitimately gain green tokens to unlock some content in the game. So if they were to port over the game to the Switch, sure, with Nintendo Nintendo's online service, players will be able to use the friend vouchers to gain green tokens. But in the future, when Nintendo eventually drops support for this console, players who play the game at that point in time will no longer be able to access the green tokens, meaning that there's a small portion of content that becomes inaccessible. So I would love it if Nintendo were to add an alternative method of obtaining green tokens. The best solution I can think of is maybe give the players a set amount of green tokens for beating each respective game's most difficult mode, Hyper Mode. Beat Metroid Prime 1, boom, 5 green tokens. Beat Metroid Prime 2 in Hyper Mode, boom, another 5 green tokens. Obviously the friend vouchers will be the best method of gaining green tokens because it's much more simple, but in case a player doesn't have any friends who have the trilogy, or if Nintendo's online service eventually drops, this would at least alleviate a major issue that many players had with the Wii version of the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Now, even though Nintendo seems to be drifting away from Amiibo support in their recent games, I would still love some Amiibo functionality. Now, I don't want the Amiibos to hide away important content or major things like in Samus Returns, like Fusion Mode or having concept art galleries locked away, but I love how Samus Returns let the Amiibos unlock reserve tanks, and with 6 cool Amiibos, I think it would be pretty cool to give each game some reserve tanks functionality. Samus and Zero Suit Samus can unlock Missile and Power Bomb reserve tanks for Prime 1. Ridley and Dark Samus can unlock Light and Dark Ammo reserve tanks, and SR Samus and the Baby can unlock Ship Missile Reserve or Health Reserve, and if not that, maybe an instant phase-on cooldown. Reserve tanks are pretty cool because it gives the player a safety net, but they're not needed, so players who don't have these Amiibos won't feel obligated or left out of content. It's just a simple little bonus for owning these Amiibos, and that's what Amiibo support should be all about, just a simple bonus, nothing too major like Fusion Suit Mode, or nothing too minor like basic skins. Now finally, last on my wish list. This might be the craziest thing I'm gonna say, cause it really is, but it'd be pretty cool if the Metroid Prime Trilogy was changed into the Metroid Prime Anthology, and they added in Metroid Prime Hunters, Metroid Prime Pinball, and Metroid Prime Federation Force, all in one package with the Metroid Prime Trilogy to create the ultimate Prime experience. Now is it crazy? Yes it is, with 2 DS games and a 3DS game all added into the already 2 GameCube games and a Wii game. It's kinda crazy trying to figure out control schemes and all that. Although honestly, I think it'll be pretty easy to convert the Prime Hunter's control scheme into what Prime 1, Prime 2, and Prime 3 have for the Wii. Thematically, it might also not make too much sense, I guess. Metroid Prime Trilogy kind of focused on the whole phase-on crisis and all that sort of stuff with Dark Samus and Metroid Prime, while Hunters has nothing to do with that. Prime Pinball just retells Prime 1, so that's kind of redundant, and Prime Federation Force takes place after the phase-on crisis, and it's more connected to Hunters than the Metroid Prime Trilogy. So it'd be kind of weird to add in like 3 games that ultimately have nothing to do with the game's plots, but I still think it'll be pretty cool. There's a lot of people out there who will love to play Prime Pinball on the Switch. Prime Hunters will finally look pretty cool for once, instead of it being crushed down on a DS screen, and maybe people will finally give Federation Force a chance. Although let's not kid ourselves, no one's gonna give that game a chance. But hey, that's just basically my wish list. What I want to know is what you guys think. Do you actually like or agree with some of the things that would change for the Metroid Prime Trilogy? Do you think some of the things I said were kinda unneeded or just not necessary? Or maybe you have your own things you'll love to see changed or added for the Prime Trilogy. Whatever you feel free to leave it in the comment section below. And real quick, I just want to apologize for being gone for almost a month and a half. A lot of things happened in my real life and I just couldn't sit down and make YouTube videos. But things have settled down now and I should be back to my normal schedule. But I just want to thank all of you for being patient with me. And if you like this kind of video and you want to see more of my videos, feel free to click on the video above. It's a video where I talk about 5 of my favorite Metroids throughout the franchise. There are a bunch of different Metroids, from the Baby to Metroid Prime to everything in between, so having to narrow down at least 5 different Metroids was kind of a challenge. Because I kinda love all the Metroids equally. I am the trainer of Metroids and all that. And with that being said, I'm the Metroid Trainer. I hope you like, favorite, subscribe, and share this video with as many people as possible. And stick around for next time, because I'll be seeing you later.